And we are live. Hey, y'all. Hey, Taralyn Michelle here with my ace coon boom, Billy Wroe. And we're
What
about to,
up?
yeah, I was just about to add, we're about to glide into something, but I was going to ask, how you doing, Ro?
Ooh, it's a it's a week, and it's only Tuesday.
It's only Tuesday. It's only Tuesday. But we'll let that marinate for just a moment. But yeah, we're going to be talking about failing forward right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Boy, 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 boy. In addition to the topic tonight,
Yes.
it's always good to have some expenditure of the energy within the air. We're tonight talking about failing forward. Oh yeah, how timely this is because
Right.
I know we typically will start off telling a little bit about how we view this topic when we saw it, what we thought about, what came to mind. And I believe last week I may have started. So this week I'll let you go ahead and launch us with. I'm so curious, Penny, for your thoughts. Penny, for your thoughts. What do you think about failing forward?
So, with this topic, I look at it in twofold and maybe a third fold, just with the life that's going on right now for me.
Yeah.
But the first one being the failing forward is really about not being afraid to fail, like not being afraid to put yourself out there and risk failure and possibly fail in order to make progress forward. The second aspect was um, being appreciative of failure as what it brings to us, what it adds to us. Even like right now, being able to be in a space of calm when most people would be in my situation in a space of hysteria. It's because of those failures that I've experienced in life to really learn not to take a single moment in life and make it way more than all moments in life leading up to this point. And so when I think about failing forward, I think about what that brings. And then also, just like I said, in the current situation that I'm in, um, understanding and accepting that you are going to have failures, and understanding that sometimes that failure is about you, and sometimes honestly that failure has nothing to do with you. And so kind of, I guess what I would say failing forward in that case is owning failure that is applicable to you and releasing failure that's not. What about you?
I like that. I like that a lot. And I like the idea of failure sometimes not being about you. I think it's human nature for us to take a lot of things that don't feel good to us personally, and yeah, guilty as charged. When I thought about this, I thought about failure in terms of a failure and favor being linked, and I think
Mm,
that's because for me, I think that a lot of the times we have our own definitions of what failure is and what it should look like, and then we'll put failure in a box. It has to
right,
necessarily be something that a failure typically equals something that is negative, something that's detrimental, something that is devaluing or that's taking away from. But if failure is not put into a box to mean just one thing, then failure could actually be a force that leads you to favor in your life. That thing that's not working the way that you feel like it should could be the very thing that's necessary, the very thing that you prayed for, the very piece that's missing to your puzzle, that thing that you need to get you to that next space. But the first thing that we would have to do is not confine what our idea of failure is to being something negative and something meant to take away, when actually that experience could be all about adding to, whether it's
mm,
your fault or not.
right, right. No, it can be that, like you said, that missing puzzle piece that you need the experience in order to go and seek out and find. Sometimes I think about like the places I was in when I was younger, and where it'd be like, kind of be asking myself, like, what am I even doing in this space that I'm in? Whether sometimes it'd be a house party, sometimes it'd be me out in the middle of the night, sneaking out and out in neighborhoods that I have no business being in. Um,
That part.
but uh, I would think about what I gained and what I learned in those experiences. So one of the things that like really stands out to me, especially like in the climate of where we are today with Black men being shot by law enforcement. I remember when I would sneak out, I would take my BB gun with me, and my BB gun looked like, it didn't look like a handgun, but it looked like it could fire a real bullet. Uh,
Hmm.
and I would be out and about, and I'd be walking around with this BB gun, thinking, having this false sense of safety because I could pull my BB gun out and pop, pop, pop. But the problem is that um, you pull out a BB gun and somebody pulls out a real gun, uh, the outcome of that can be catastrophic for your life. Like it can end your life. And so I think about those lessons that I gleaned in those moments of rebelliousness and being disobedient and thinking that I had it all figured out. I think about those moments, and I'm much more calculated into what weapons, if we're going to use that metaphorically, what weapons I bring in to situations where I want to create safety. Do I bring yelling? Do I bring physical? Do I bring intellectual? Do I bring wit? Do I bring the capacity, the emotional capacity to be able to dissolve situations? So it made me much more conscious, especially knowing in hindsight that people have been murdered on the same place that I was walking with my BB gun thinking I was safe. It brings a level of hindsight, and a level of intelligence to who I am today. Now, maybe I would have probably experienced some other things that could have got me there, but that is like that pivotal moment in my life where it's like, oh, you thought you were safe because you brought the weapons. But there's this, I forget which book it's in, but it says, hey, if your opponent is, they have fighter jets and tanks and artillery and all kinds of things, and all you have are sticks and stones, then maybe the best thing to do is not to engage with them in physical combat. Be
Right.
more intellectual, be smarter, be wiser, to engage with them on a battleground where you can at least have an even battleground.
And see, I that when you talked about choosing your weapon, I, I like that because that goes back to like that authenticity piece for me because you people situations emotionally charged situations, we can arrive in those situations, and because somebody's using their weapon of choice, you know that's not your weapon, you
Right,
know that that's not where your strength is, but because it's emotionally charged and they're pelting what they have at you, you'll just throw back what you're receiving. But when you talked about choosing your weapon, basically that makes me think about us really being connected to our truth and standing in that, especially when it's uncomfortable, because that's how you hone it. That's how you sharpen it. It's not all the time what weapons folks are using, it's how well you use what you got. Because if
right,
they can't use what they have with the proficiency that you can, then you could end up like in the whole David and Goliath situation. You could end up walking away from that situation unscathed in a typical circumstance where you should have been defeated. you know
right,
and so knowing what our weapons are, where our strengths lie, and standing in those, especially when it's uncomfortable, especially when it seems like there's no way we can win, there's no way we can make it around a certain situation, standing in that helps us to grow in that. And there are going to be defeats. There are going to be some wins. There are going to be some draws. There are going to be some times, like how you said, where you may just choose to walk away and fight another day. You know,
right.
doesn't matter. But just having the courage to stand in that strength, I think is something. So when I think about failing forward, in this day and age, with things being so very, I think things are more competitive now than what they've ever been in the history of man, just because of the way things have shifted and changed so much within society. And then this growing number of folks who are working from home, which used to didn't be a thing. Finding remote positions, that was not a thing. And if you did have a remote position, it's because you had been with a company way long time. You had a position that was very high up. You know, you were an entrepreneur or a business owner. But as far as working for companies and being at home, that was like not a thing, like how it is
Right.
now. And so then with the landscape of competition, with the landscape of there being much more people in need of jobs and resources, and it's they want us to believe there are all these jobs available, but the competition shows you that maybe that's not the case. With all of that, and all of the I remember back in the day, you could, I don't like this job and quit, and the next day have another one.
Right.
It was like, what you said I can't wear what? Okay, I'm not working here no more. You
Right.
just go get another job. Now it's nothing for the process to take 6 months, maybe more. Used to be back in the day, you'd have to worry about that with just the military or government or something like that. That wasn't just for like a regular company. So anyway, with the different landscape and how many losses folks tend to take before they actually get a win, what would you say, coach, is probably, I don't want to say the best because there is no best is too general. What do you say would be a great tactic for mindset to take into situations where you're going to incur many more losses before you do wins, just because it's the nature of how things flow? What would you say to help equip somebody for that journey?
I'm glad you said that word journey. Um, we live in this society where there's this instant noodle, cup of noodle mentality. I can put this in the microwave for 3 minutes and I can have a whole meal that has no nutrients.
Tough.
Just filler. You'll feel full, but you will not have nourishment. You will not have nutrition.
Yeah,
And so really when I think about what tool helps, it's appreciating that journey, appreciating that it's a process. And sometimes it's as simple as going back to our childhood as an infant. Before we could walk, we had to be able to prop ourselves up and then crawl and then balance standing up and then walk. And then we were able to jog and run and climb and play and become independent. But that's a journey. That's not instantaneous. It's not like your mom, boop, it's a boy, boop, it's a girl, and then you're independent. There is a journey that takes place. And if
yeah,
we can learn to appreciate the journey, I kind of feel like I'm preaching to myself right now for my situation. If we can learn to appreciate the journey, if I can learn to appreciate the journey of fatherhood, what it is to be a father, and realize that there's so much more in my journey to go because my children are still here. And that's a blessing and a gift that they're still here. So that means that my journey of fatherhood gets to continue. And even if I was to like lose a child, um, my journey of fatherhood continues in this state of what that grieving process looks like, what that loss looks like. And so I would say my advice or my suggestion would be to learn to appreciate the journey and realize that you are strengthening, developing, growing the aptitude and the abilities that you're going to need in the future for other challenges that you're also going to be able to triumph over because of it.
definitely. And I would, just listening to you say that, appreciating the journey, I think I would add to that. Sometimes it's hard to appreciate the journey because folks can be focused on the challenge that's in front of their face right now. It's like, this is like right here. How can I appreciate the journey? This like right here. I can't get around and see nothing. It's like right here. So I know sometimes that can be challenging. I think I would add to that that the challenge can be focused on, or sometimes just setting the challenge aside. Once you've done all you can, my grandmother used to say, my mother still says, once you've done all you can, stand. So if you've done all you can in the face of the challenge, then maybe it's time to put the challenge off to the side, because focusing on that thing that you've deemed there's nothing else you can do, it seems immovable, that takes you away from other things that could use your attention. I don't know any one of us who has a challenge. We might have several. If we take and put all of those in a pile, that's our entire life. There are still other things that we need to address. Maybe some things that we've been wanting to get started that we haven't done. Maybe some things that we've started that we haven't finished. Maybe some things that we need to follow up on. There's always something. So there are the things that are challenging that we can't seem to tweak to go our way, and then there are other things that we could follow through, that we could expand upon. Maybe this is the opportunity to launch something new, and it doesn't have to be anything as big as a business. It could be, hey, I've been saying forever that I was going to clean out that room over there because I really need more office space. It could be
Right.
anything, but taking and using what it is that we have at our disposal and seeing value in that once we've done all we can and decided to stand over in situations where we don't see that there's anything else that we can do with them at the moment. That's just a moment. It's only going to be a moment. It always passes. So yes,
It
that's
does.
the
I,
mind.
I love what you bring in there, because you're right. We sometimes will hyper focus on failure. Sometimes we'll ignore it, but typically we'll hyper focus on failure. Or if you ignore it, eventually, like if it's health related, eventually you'll have to pay attention to it, and then you'll hyper focus on it.
Yeah.
But you're right. Failure is not the only thing that's happening, and it's easy to fall um, victim to that thought process as if it is the only thing that's happening. Why can't I seem to get it right? Why is this always falling apart? Well, maybe you using the wrong glue. I don't know. but
Using that
uh,
Elmer's when you need gorilla.
right. Exactly. So it's interesting because you also, when you talk about like kind of being in this space now, I feel like life has gotten to this space where we were on this course of trying to live like a well balanced life, budget, family, all these different things. And then we went to this stage of trying to keep up with the Joneses. Now it's like I'm trying to drive the nicest car in the neighborhood, or I'm trying to drive the same car that somebody who makes 3 times the amount of money I make drives. And now I feel like we are, unfortunately, instead of transitioning back to balance, we're transitioning to a space of trying to outdo the Joneses. I see people walking around with Gucci sandals and Fendi purses and just things that I know cost quite a bit of money. At least for my budget, they cost quite a bit of money. Um, and I also know these are people who don't have any assets. It's like, wait a minute. So you got Gucci's asset. That's Gucci's asset. That shirt that you bought, that was on their ledger as an asset, because they were going to sell that inventory to you, and now they're going to turn a profit. So that's their asset that you've purchased, yet you don't have any assets of your own. And so in that space where we sometimes think only one thing is happening, or we're only focused on the failure, it can cause us to overcorrect. And now, because I grew up in a household where we didn't have all the financial means that I wish we had, now that I have some money, I'm gonna just ball out. Mm-mm, mm-mm. Because you're overcorrecting what you perceive to be a failure. I've actually, in the childhood that I had, where I mean, no, we were poor. I was gonna say we weren't broke, but we were poor. In the childhood that I had, I'm so grateful for the childhood that I have, where some people would see it as a failure, like my parents didn't do what they needed to do to put me in a position to excel. No, they did what they could with what they had. Um, and whether that's a success or failure for them, that's not for me to overcorrect now in my adult life. All I can do at this point in my adult life is say, okay, this was the hand that I was dealt. Here's where I'm at today. What can I do with the resources that I had? So even when I recently got a pretty good pay increase, um, I was grateful, because the pieces of the puzzle that I picked up in the failures of not having as a child, I was able to just say, hey, look, the quality of life that I had at the amount of money that I was making previously was a good quality of life. I think we're going to keep living at that quality of life. And then we're going to just kind of move forward with saving more money. That's taking the failures that you had, those disappointments, the My parents didn't buy me a car when I was a kid. I had to go and work, and then they paid for half of the car that I purchased. But it was like, we'll match whatever you put in. You put 1,000, you go get a $2,000 car. You put 1,500, you go get a $3,000 car. So they matched that versus just giving to me. And I think sometimes to move beyond that, keeping up or outdoing the Jones, sometimes we do our children a disservice
Yeah.
by trying to do so much better than our parents did. Don't get me wrong. I think that there are some things that we can improve upon, and I think you should try to improve upon the experience. However, there are some lessons, sometimes some tough fought or hard earned lessons that have to be learned. And it's better to learn them in childhood and fail that forward than trying to learn that in adulthood and really having some catastrophic setbacks.
I think, and what I hear you describing is unresolved personal issues that people have with childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what I'm saying? Because you're right. You see these kids nowadays, they are so completely and totally spoiled and disconnected from the human beings that are their parents and
Mm-hmm.
money and things. They don't understand that that's like a person that's going out and making that happen. This person gets tired, this person gets sick, this person has good days, this person has bad days. It's kind of like to give an example, I remember when I was younger, my grandmother, she was an old lady for real by that time. She was grandma, but she was an old she was an old lady for real by this time. And she had this high school that she went and got this part-time job with, where she was working in the lunchroom. She was a lunch lady. And she came home and she was talking about how some boys or something, they wasn't talking right to her or whatever. And that was the first time that I saw the lunch lady as being a person, because the lunch lady happened to be my grandmother. But other than
Right.
that, your teachers are just your teachers, miss whatever. She doesn't have a husband and kids and mortgage and good days, bad days, could be fighting through cancer, could have a problem with a family member. She just Miss Jackson. You know, that
Right.
was the first time I actually connected the lunch lady to being like a freaking person with family that loves her, that gets tired, that probably has financial stuff they're going through, whatever. I think kids nowadays, because of parents not addressing some of their own stuff, and I'm not saying this is true for every parent, but why else would the materialism with the kids be to the point where they can't look at you and tell, I don't think mom feels good today, or it seems like mom's been sad lately? These were things that I knew coming up. I could
Mm-hmm.
tell if my mother, her energy was a little different that day, or maybe she seemed bothered, or maybe something just felt different. I could tell that because I was connected to my mom. These kids nowadays are so disconnected from their parents, and it's all about the stuff. But the parents create that environment. They
Right.
create the environment where, yeah, it is about the stuff. I just, and it's one of those types of things that I think set children up for failure when they leave outside of the home, because it creates an unrealistic expectation for how life
Right.
works. It shows no value for money, how you make it, how it's not infinite. How I had my niece tell me, no, this was my grand, this was Audrey. She told me one time she wanted something. She sent me links. She was like 4, sending me links for stuff. Like, what is this? What happened to write down the list? Oh, you just send me
What
a
happened
link.
to going through the Sunday paper?
You hear me? She gonna send me a link. It was something that she wanted, and I was like, "Whoa, okay." It was sweet. I was like, "Okay, I get that," but I'm gonna need some time. She's 11 now, so this is some time ago, and so she was like, "Well, you could just go to the bank." I'm like, "Well, that's
Oh,
true. There would have to like be money there." In her mind, she just see me go to the bank. Oh, you just go and get the money, and that's it. She didn't understand the connection between the bank. Doesn't just have money they give to me. I have to put money in there to go get it. She
right.
didn't get that. I think that there's that disconnect with the materialism with kids now. They're not connected to their parents. They don't get that these are human beings, that there should be some appreciation for these things that you get. And then the missing gap between the value of money, what it takes to make money, how your material things shouldn't mean more to you than your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, whoever. it's a really challenging time. And so when you think about failing forward, how are we able to create a foundation of teaching children how to be resilient, because they're going to be young adults one day, when it comes to the process of failing forward, if there's no real innate and substantial value system from which there's a foundation to build upon?
Right. No, I think you're right about the parents setting that stage. Kids come in as a blank slate. Now, there's some chemical things that go on in their brain that is genetically brought in, but for the most part, they come in as a blank slate. And when you foster the behaviors that really, in a sense, dehumanize you as a parent, it's easy to make that disconnect. Now, with your grandbaby, there's a disconnect because there's a lack of understanding of financial ability to go into a bank and get money. Like, no, there has to be money placed first, honey, not they just give you
Right.
money. But as children get older and as they mature, I think there is some of the things when you think about, the father who goes to work and he doesn't complain and he's hard and he's stoic all the time, um, that can create a disconnect because it dehumanizes you. Oh, well, you don't have emotions and feelings. And I experience that sometimes as a father with my children, because they're like, well, you don't, when you are mad, you will yell, but then there's times where you're just indifferent and you just kind of shut down. And for them, they're like, well, dad's just mad, but he's not saying nothing right now. He'll get over it. No, that's not how life works with everybody. My middle son and I were having a conversation about him being frustrated because I don't talk to him right now. Like, I literally, if he asks me a question, I'll answer it. Or if he needs help with homework or something, I'll help him. But we don't have a whole lot of conversation right now. I have pointed him in the direction of a therapist. This is who you kind of need to be talking to right now, because I know that I am not equipped to meet you nor help you with what you're dealing with. But one of the things that I'm also protective of, and I let them know, like, look, I have to be protective of my own mental health. Like, outside of trying to nurture you and get you on track, I have to protect my own mental health as well. And so that means for me, the reason I'm not talking to you is because 85% of our conversations, you're lying to me. And I know that I can get highly agitated about somebody lying to me because it makes me feel like you must think I'm boo boo the fool and I'm just supposed to believe any word that comes out your mouth. So I make the decision for my own mental health. Billy, it's best that you don't talk to this person. I get it. He's your son. You love him. You want the best for him. But right now, it's not the best for you to talk to him. And that sets a boundary that, hey, dad is a human first and foremost. Before dad's a dad, before dad's a man, dad is a human being with his own conscience and his own mental health that he has to worry about. So while you want me to worry about yours, I can only do so much. So I'm going to get you the professional help that I think that you need, but I also have to worry about mine. And until you can respect me enough to speak to me truthfully, we don't need to talk. And you're going to be frustrated by that. Well, you're not talking to me. Tell the truth. It's easy. Tell the truth. If you don't want to do that, then I don't have to talk to you. That's not a requirement for my parenting. I don't have to have conversations with you outside of, hey, it's time to eat. Hey, make sure you go to bed. Hey, take a shower. I can be very transactional, and as callous as that may see, it's to continue to paint that picture that, hey, you're not the only human on the planet who has emotions and feelings. Other people have emotions and feelings. Those feelings can be hurt or can be tainted. And that can change their interactions with you. And so as hard as it is to sometimes not talk to your child, because you want to have conversation with your child, you still have to protect yourself. It's like being in a relationship that isn't good for you,
Yeah.
and you leave, and then a week later you miss them, so you go back, or you miss her and you go back, even though it's not a good relationship for you. You go back because you do care about the person, but you got to care about yourself more than you care about others. And that sounds so selfish, but it's the reality of, you won't be here if you have a stroke or a heart attack because you're too busy caring about it or caring about everybody else.
Oh yes, I mean that's a part of self care, and then also too, that makes me think of the saying my grandmother always says: "I carried that stick and threw it away. You just picked it up. It's a new stick to you." He burning up because he's the thought in his mind about what he wants to say and how he's going to explain it, and you're not letting him do that.
Nope. Nope.
He's got it all prepared, man. He's like, "Yes, I'm gonna say this." Something we know we've all been there.
Mhm.
But you like, yeah, nah, bro. No, that was happening.
Yeah, not the this not that show. Sorry. So, but yeah, so I would ask you this question because in the failing forward process, I feel like they're two words. You're failing or you're experiencing a failure, but the forward. How do we really engage from your perspective? How do we really engage with the forward progress of the failure?
I would say, in the midst of the mud, stay focused on what the goal is, but also look for nuggets within the failure, nuggets that might be pointing you toward whether or not you're on track with what you think your goal should be, or maybe there are some areas in which you may need to shift or pivot. I don't think that, and I've been guilty of this before, being in a space where things are not going the way that I feel like they should go. And I mean, I'm making zero traction, putting all that sweat equity in. And I'm just like, or when you get to that point where you get momentum and then you just smack dab hit a brick wall. And you like, wait a minute, hold up. What happened? You know,
Right.
you're going and backtracking with what you were doing where you got the momentum. I will keep myself stuck in that space of trying to recreate what got me that far instead of understanding that where I hit the wall was probably as far as I was going to go with what I was doing. Maybe it's time to look at it differently, you know? And so I think that in that process of trying to move forward, look at the overall big picture, see if there's something that you can take from what you consider the failure, be open to flexibility, but by all means continue to move. And also that's a good space too to connect with your circle. If you got some people around you, if there's some things going on, and when I say circle, I'm not talking just in terms of business, I'm talking in terms of mind, body, spirit. It could be an emotional space that you're in, it could be a spiritual space that you're in. Sometimes having that person that you can talk to that's outside of the emotion, that's outside of the stress of the situation, that's outside of the bubble that we tend to be in with our stuff, they can sometimes see things that you can't see and offer some different ways to look at a situation. Or they may even have firsthand knowledge because of their own personal experiences that you wouldn't be aware of if you hadn't have shared yours. So
Right.
sometimes it's good to step outside of our own heads and share what it is that we're going through to get that person who can stand outside of the situation and say, well, hey, had you considered this? Had you looked at this or that? So I think that those are some of the foundational things that have really helped and continue to help with taking those failures and being able to move forward even in the midst of the madness for me.
Mm. Yeah, no, the tribe aspect is critical to
It's
me at least.
huge.
It is critical
It's
because
huge.
I watch a lot of stories online, social media, news articles, doesn't matter where I get the stories from, but
Yeah.
in a lot of the stories that I'm watching, I will notice that I'm going to probably say 8 out of 10 times it comes down to the people that you have around you.
100%. Yeah.
Like you see people cheering you on for poor decisions. And
Mhm.
it's like that person's not in your corner. You're entertainment to them.
Mhm.
You're the life of the party, but you're just entertainment. They're not in your corner.
Mm-mm.
Those are the same people that will be, oh my God, he OD'd.
Yep.
Oh my God, he just drove off the road, high speed chase. Those people are not in your corner and they are not um, concerned about the consequences that can come because failure does come with a consequence.
Always.
There's varying levels of severity of the consequences, but it comes with a consequence. And
Sure.
so when you talk about having the right tribe around you, man, that is you counsel. You should be able to go to these people that you trust, and they care about you and you care about them,
Yeah.
and be able to get good guidance. I remember, man, I can't remember how long ago this was. This is a long time ago, but a long time ago, I remember I wanted to make a decision because I was frustrated. I was just completely frustrated, totally upset, and was like, F this, I'm out. And I had probably 8 of my peers, hey, I understand where you're at. Your feelings are valid. You feel the way you feel, and that's real.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's the right choice.
Let's wait it out.
Hey, I understand where you're at. Your feelings are real, but I don't think that's the right choice. That tribe is a part for me of that forward progress,
Yeah.
to be able to continue to push and move forward, um, even when you may not be in an emotional space where you desire to. You might be in a failure where that you truly just want to give up, like, oh, I'm done. What's the use? What's the point? But having those cheerleaders who can convert to leaders in your life, they'll cheer you on when you're doing something right, but they'll convert to and change into leaders when you need them in your life as leaders in that space.
That's
So
so critical.
I'm with that.
And I also think that coming to a space where we grow and evolve enough within ourselves to feel as though we can trust our judgment when
Mm,
picking who these members of our tribe are. Because when it talk about failing forward and just this whole conversation and how critical a tribe is, I don't care in what context we're talking about. A lot of people who I've talked to, even some clients, and I start telling them, your tribe. I mean, I'm your coach. That's one thing. You already know how we rock. But I'm talking about outside of me. Some people who like really know you. And you'd be surprised at how many people are terrified at the idea of, well, I don't want nobody knowing my business. Well, first of all,
yeah.
but but I'm like, well, here's the thing. There's nothing new under the sun. It really
No,
isn't. There's
your
nothing
business is not
new,
new.
nothing new under the sun. And the people who want to make you think that your stuff is brand new, that's because they had in their own. You have to get to a space, and I think that I always say it's beneficial to get to a space where you just really and truly do not give a damn. You care more about being of service to others and having a tribe around you that sees greatness in you and wants to exchange that. When that's your focus, the like attracts like.
Right.
You're going to be able to feel when somebody's really not a genuine person. And sometimes that takes a little bit of time. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes some people you just click and but at the end of the day, I always recommend getting over ourselves. The benefits far outweigh the risk when it comes to that. You know what I'm saying? And I like I say, because there's nothing new under the sun, there's nothing that anyone can share where they're trying to get support, where if somebody, let's say they worst case scenario were to share that with somebody else, well, it's not going to destroy your life. You're just
Right.
not going to like it. Well, that wasn't cool, and now I know who that person is.
Right. And that's temporary as well.
Exactly. Exactly. But if to anybody watching or listening to this, I wouldn't want someone to be in that space where you're literally on the cusp of something phenomenal. And the only missing piece is someone being able to peer down at your situation from outside of the bubble that you're in and say, hey, you ever thought of this? You ever tried this? You ever thought that? Somebody to be able to give you that, but they don't have the opportunity because you haven't opened yourself up to trust yourself enough to choose members of a tribe. So I just encourage people to do that. It's been one of the most rewarding things that I've ever done, and it really broadens and matures you in I'd say probably one of the biggest ways ever, when you allow yourself to be a part of those types of situations.
Hmm. So I got another question for you in regards to failure
Mhm.
and failing forward. How do I want to pose this question? I think it's the best way to pose it is failure is just one part of our journey. There's failures and there's successes. Obviously, I would think that the successes feel better than the failures. Um, but what are some ways that viewers can leverage uh, prior successes against, or I don't want to say against, leverage prior successes um, when dealing with present failures?
I think that being able to really connect to, and this is something that was always challenging for me, and it still is sometimes for me, being able to connect to areas where we've hit the ball out of the park. Sometimes I think we get so far removed from the times when we should have been popping our collar that we forget that there's a secret sauce within
Mm,
us. You know, and I know that that was something that like I said, it's always been difficult for me. My mother, she was so mad at me. I can't remember which degree it was. It wasn't my master's. It was before that, sometime in undergrad. And I was always focused on whatever my goal was. And I remember, I think it was my bachelor's. I remember her coming to me. It was one day I was working on something, and she came and she was so excited. She was talking about the ceremony that was coming up, and what was I wearing, and what was she wearing, and this and that. And I remember I was trying to figure out something, and she disrupted my train of thought. And it must have just been the expression on my face because I was annoyed. I can't lie, I was. And she, she doing that mom thing, and she was like, I just what is with your attitude? Why are you acting like that? And I said, Ma, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about something. And she said, you know what? And I remember she just slapped my computer closed. She said, that's what's wrong with you. She said, that's why you're never truly happy. You can't see the forest for the trees. You can't see anything that's amazing about your life because the moment you get to what you feel like is the finish line with something else, you just throw it to the side and you're on to the next thing. When do you ever just slow down and pause and shut everything off and just be in this moment? Say, you know what? I did that. That's cool. Allow the people around you to celebrate with you and to celebrate for you. So, to your question, that was something that always stuck with me because in that, she started to walk me backwards through all of
hmm
the different things that I've accomplished and how I didn't realize I did it. I just pushed people off who were proud of me and I'd accomplished some things my mother always wanted to do. Even now, she always talks about I'm living her life in a lot of ways. And she's so proud of that. But she never got the opportunity to really celebrate certain milestones because it was just like nothing to me. Meanwhile, I'm feeling when failures come up, I'm taking those things on and I'm feeling the weight of all of these different things. And so, to your question, I think in order for us to prepare to move forward beyond some of the most difficult times in our life, it's so important for us to connect to the spaces from which we came, where we were able to rise and be successful at whatever it was we were trying to do at that time. And I think that connecting to those things helps to remind us of some of the different tools that we've acquired within our mindset, within our chest of skill set, because we have skills when it comes to mindset. We have things when it comes to spiritual. And I say spiritual because that's the climate that we create that helps us to cope emotionally. It helps us to hone into our emotional intelligence and use those things in such a way that we're not manipulated through some of these emotionally charged situations by other people or even by ourselves, turning in on ourselves. So if we know from whence we come and we're grabbing from those different things, and even in the hardest spaces, taking and applying those things and making visible, people
hmm
need to know. It's not just something for just you and your family. Putting those things out there in the most uncomfortable times and getting feedback, it helps to reassure you. It helps to give you something stable from within while you're going through the thing that you're going through. And it helps you to reconnect to probably some skill sets you probably forgot about because you're so focused on what the challenges are that some people may not see or that you're trying to navigate through.
Mm, No, you're right. I think there are some things that we simply forget about, but having that third person perspective, um, that is very, very helpful because I like you, am very quick. Okay, great. Accomplish that next.
Done.
Accomplish that next.
Chuck it.
Like,
I have to check myself with that. I really do. I fight with that to this day, and
right,
those are the pieces that I need. I'm going through a challenging time now. I'm going to tell you, there is nothing more scary as a business owner to have some things that, I mean, you invested some time, some money, some years in, and to come to a point where that thing as you know it, you got to walk away from it. And you do. You
mm,
feel it, you know that this has run its course, and it's not that it's just completely and totally gone as it's not gone per se, but it's gone as you knew it. So then there's
right,
a discomfort that comes with reinventing something because it's that time. You think
right.
about all the time you spent, you think about all the money, you think about all of the, you think about it. I question myself sometimes, damn, was I really, is that where I should have been with that? And but at the end of the day, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about failing forward. Sometimes making decisions that are the right decision for the moment are all you can do, and the only thing I can tap into is who I've been before I got to this point.
Mm,
That's it.
right.
you know
No, I 100% agree because you're the nature is when things get stale, we do have to reinvent them. I mean, shoot, you could just take cell phones. Just cell phones. Every year.
Man,
Every year there's a new version of the same cell phone.
every 3 months, what you talking
That's
about?
what we
Every
do.
quarter. It's not even a year, every quarter.
Right. You need to create this. Okay, now it does this. Now it does that. And there's just one additional thing added to the millions of things that it already does.
For a
And
couple
maybe
hundred
two,
extra dollars over what you paid
right, for the
last
low,
time.
low
Don't
prices,
forget about that.
$299.99. 95 cents, not quite $300.
Right,
But
right,
it's
right.
like we I feel like it's human nature when things become stale, we change. I mean, I'm looking at my son's behavior now. He's been under punishment for so long that he's now like, how do I reinvent this situation? And the choices he's making are not good choices to reinvent the situation, but he's trying to change um, his experience without complying with the rules that are creating the experience.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's funny. I always tell my kids, I'm like, you didn't get a layman father. You weren't lucky enough, I guess, to get a layman father. You got a father who's highly intelligent and highly analytical. So even in the midst of him being frustrated with me not talking to him, it doesn't mean I'm not still analyzing the situation. And in that, it's almost the same approach that I take with when I that I took when I was dating. If there was somebody who was reaching out to me in a way that was like, "Oh, I want attention," but it was really just they didn't care if it was my attention or not. They just wanted attention. Yeah,
Hmm.
no attention. Not, like not even like, "Oh yeah, I got that," or "Don't send that to me," or
You
no
just left them
zero.
red.
Zero attention. I didn't have nobody paying me to talk to me.
Don't start. Do not. Do not.
Oh,
I
oh
hate
my
you.
gosh. Ooh, ooh, I'm sorry. That gave me a headache. Oh my
Don't even
goodness.
go there. You can't make this
but
stuff up. You can't. It's
but
crazy.
I did have people who wanted my attention, and it
Shots
was they.
fired.
I couldn't help it. But that's where I've been at, where it's like, I'm not going to give you the attention. So you're gonna have to move on.
Yeah.
And with our children, it's not the same, obviously. I'm not gonna give you the attention for negative, that whole some attention is better than no attention, so I'll take negative attention. No, I'm not, I'm definitely not gonna give you attention on negative.
Mm-mm.
You're gonna have to come with a different rabbit out of a different hat because that trick ain't gonna work.
Right.
And so I've learned over time to really assess situations for what they are.
Yeah.
And that causes, which is strange, it causes a lot of friction in my life when you just simply accept. You would think it wouldn't cause friction, but it causes friction because when you accept things for what they are, or you accept your truth about the experience, people will try to fight you to get you to subscribe to their truth, to subscribe to their experience. And that's where a lot of friction has been caused because I'm a compassionate person, I'm a caring person, I'm a loving person. However, once I decide that something is my truth, I'm also a very steadfast person. I don't even call it stubborn anymore. I'm a steadfast person on what I believe. And my steadfastness does not require your belief in order for it to be something that the square that I choose to stand on.
Your
Uh,
belief or approval for that fact.
or approval. And to make matters worse is I don't have to combat with you on your square to try to get you to believe my belief, nor to try to discredit your belief.
Mm-mm.
Your experience is coming from your eyes, your perspective, your experience is your mind, and I can accept that for you. As long as I'm not physically in danger, nobody that I care is in physical danger, hurt, harm, or anything like that, you get to rock with that.
And the
If
reason why that's a problem is because your perspective is it's there, it's staunch, it's not going nowhere. That throws the other person off because they need, and I've experienced this. If I'm standing in my truth, I'm confident in that, I'm comfortable in that. And so, like, we can agree to disagree. I'm about that life. Hey, cool. We don't agree. That's fine. You want to drink, girl? You know, it's cool. But that makes a person who's not comfortable in their situation like that, they need the feedback. They need the back and forth. When you take that from them, now
mm,
they don't know what to do. And I realized that in a conversation recently that I was having, my participation in the banter back and forth to try and I don't know if it was to sway or persuade me, that was necessary for them. That's the way they were used to communicating. And when I didn't give them that, they didn't know what to do and they didn't understand it's not personal about you. I didn't even know they felt that way. It was just having a conversation and sitting there observing. And I'm like, you need me to do this. And me like, well, I
mm.
don't need to do that. So I'm not. You know, I didn't say that, but that's what my position was. And so that's what the energy was. That was the first time I saw that for what that is. You know, so sometimes when you trust yourself, you're comfortable with your decision and you're so okay with you believe what you believe, I believe what I believe, agree to disagree and not just say it, but really mean it because there's an energy with that. Like when you're
Right.
cool with that and somebody else is not, that's when
You
the
can tell.
boo boo hit the fan, right?
Right.
That's when that can get like that. But yeah, I've noticed that, and oh God, I had a situation where it's like if you've ever, and I think that the average person watching this or listening to this, I think you'll be able to relate to this. So if you know a person and you know that the communication style with this person and the communication style with you is hit or miss, but the misses are much higher than the hits. All right.
Hmm.
You know this. All right. And really the best thing to do when I have relationships like that, it's a percentile thing. If you hitting over 60 with the misses, I can't deal with you like that because that's too much.
Right.
That's too much of an energy. That's the balance is off. But this particular person, because I've been knowing them for a while. I hadn't actually put them in the miss pile. I should have. I should have, but I didn't. I really can't even explain why I didn't. Probably just knowing them for a long time, comfortable, focusing more on the good instead of the misses. Well, baby, when I tell you that it hit this time and it hit like you see the look up, and I'm just sitting here like, but you set yourself up. You set yourself up. So when we talk about failing forward, I think it's so important to not only know from whence we come and stay tapped into the areas of successes that we've had and always take those things with us. Those things serve as pieces to a bigger picture. But in addition to that, choosing to stay cognizant of what works within your situation. And I'm talking about in terms of communication with people, I'm talking about in terms of energy exchanges, what works and what doesn't. Having the courage to stay steadfast and strong in what works for you, that is self care, as well as being okay with having different aspects of people that you appreciate, that you like, whatever word you put to it, but knowing at the end of the day, if the overall scope of this person, I'm talking the grand scheme of who this person is, if it's not going to fit with where you're trying to go moving forward, let that go.
Mm.
It's not worth it, because sometimes taking that hit and how it can set you back. Now, I'm proud of myself because back in the day, Bear would have came out and it would have been,
A mall lake.
man, like tearing that fish up on the side of the doggone shore, what it would have been, claws to it and all. But I'm so proud of me because even in the midst of that emotional pain, I was cool. I felt it, but it didn't even occur to me to maul something, which blew my mind. It wasn't until like the next day I was like, "Oh, child, you would have," and then I was like, "But you didn't even think about that. Look at you."
Growing and stuff.
I would have been thought back in the day of about 7, 8 different ways to fillet or eviscerate a mofo back in the
Mm-hmm.
day. Didn't even think of it, didn't even cross my mind. I had how I felt, but everything that came out of my mouth was in alignment with who I truly am now. And I took that L for what it was. And that's the only reason why I'm not in a pit emotionally, because I didn't go there. But it taught me that we all, me, always have to be vigilant with what I know my weak areas are, and just never let up on that. I don't want to be lazy with me and what keeps me, like you say, emotionally and mentally healthy. Have to be vigilant with that all the
Right.
time.
No, I agree. And I guess we're at closing thoughts already. Man, that hour went by really fast. It's
That
always
happens.
therapeutic
Let's
hour.
put it on couches.
So I guess from what you're saying, even right there, that's kind of in alignment with what my closing thought is really about. Failing forward for me is about knowing thyself, knowing your capabilities, knowing that you're fallible, that you're going to make mistakes, um, appreciating the journey as a part of knowing yourself, knowing that you're getting better.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's about knowing thyself. And if you have failed before, you'll fail again. And if you've overcome before, you can overcome again. And just trusting that about the holistic nature of your identity and who you are destined and designed to be. That'd be my closing thought.
I like that. Look at you with your poetic self.
Ooh, no thought. Doo-doo-doo.
Ah, man, I like that. I think that at the end of the day, and people probably heard this a million times before, but it's one of those things that life is proving true for me more times than not. My grandmother used to always say it. I don't care how challenging the circumstance, no matter what it seems like we don't have, we could use, we wish we had. In those moments, we have everything that we need, not necessarily that we want, but that we need. And I would just implore anyone who's going through something challenging now where you feel as though there's no other way, do all you can and stand. Everything you need is there. Sometimes just decompression helps us to connect to it.
I love it. I love it.
That's what I would say. So you now you already know. Did you have me close out the last 2 times?
I did. You want me to close out? I got you.
I was like, you gonna make me do it again. I was like,
I'd
you
be like, yay.
hey.
All right. So as you guys know, during the show, we are also taking down notes, some of the key points or the more potent points that are coming across in the show. And so we like to call this section of the show the Coach's Playbook. So I have 3 tools for the Coach's Playbook tonight that I'd like to share with you from tonight's conversation. Tool number 1 from the Coach's Playbook is really look for the missing pieces. Failing forward, going all the way back to the beginning, Taralyn, you said it's about sometimes us not having the components that we need to truly build the prototype or the finished product. Um, Look for those missing pieces in the failure. They're there. They may not all be there. You might have to go through some more failures to get the other pieces, but some of those pieces that you do need in order to move forward and to truly reach the success that you're striving for, the destination that you're seeking, is found in that failure. So rather than being caught up with the victim mentality, being caught up with the failure itself, be caught up with the lesson. Take the L, the lesson, not the loss. Tool number 2 with the coach's playbook is appreciate. It was a first appreciate the journey, but it was also appreciate and connect with the journey. This is a journey. This is not a sprint. You might have moments where you sprint, but you can't sprint to this finish line. Failure is going to be all throughout the course of this journey. So appreciate what the journey is teaching you. Appreciate how the journey is developing you. Connect deeply with the journey so that you can actually be aware when you do get to one of your finish lines before the next race starts. Make sure you celebrate. Don't be like us. Celebrate once you finish the finish line and then start your next race after. But this is a part of that journey. As part of that journey is appreciation, and it will keep it. I feel like it will keep the gloom of failure kind of at bay. You might still feel some disappointment. You might still have some feelings that are sad or disappointing. But at the end of the day, it's a journey. And if you appreciate the journey for everything that it brings to you, when you do look back at your successes, you can actually look at your failures in a state of gratitude that they actually took place because they got you to where you are today. And then tool number 3 from the coach's playbook is your failure is only new to you.
Come through.
Ain't nothing new under this sun. It's only new to you. And it's only a speck of time in the holistic view of what your journey actually is. So along with appreciating and connecting with your journey, realize that this journey is only new to you. And when it comes up the next time, or this failure is only new to you, and when that failure or something similar to it comes up the next time, you'll at least have some familiarity with it. And you'll understand that all things worketh for the good of those. I'll let you fill in the blank. So that's what we have for you guys this evening. As always, we thank you for tuning in with us live. If you have not done so already, I'm going to go a little backwards today. Go to firstrow.com, get your copy of Fire Your Job, Hire Your Passion. Most of these conversations that we're having, this book is right in alignment with them, as far as whether it's financial, whether it's mental, whether it's some of the spiritual side. This book is pretty much in alignment with the conversations that we're having on Taralyn, Michelle, and Billy Wroe Live. If you question or doubt that it is, go to firstrow.com and download the first chapter today. Read the whole first chapter and find out if this would be a book that you'd be interested in reading. And then, as always, we have more content. This is not the end. This is the beginning of the week. So we got more content for you coming later this week. Tomorrow, you can catch me on the First Row at 6:30 p.m., 9:30 p.m. I'm sorry, 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the Wednesday Word. That's actually already popped up on YouTube. The topic will be refreshers. You want to know what that's about? You're going to have to come over and see what that's about. Then you can catch Taralyn on the Grind Define podcast on Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for her world famous, world renowned, winning award self podcast. And then, as always, you can follow us on social media. You can follow Taralyn on social media under the Grind Define, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and LinkedIn under at firstrow.com or at First Row, not .com. That's my website. Just at First Row. And then, as always, on Tuesdays, you can link up with us on Tuesdays for another episode of Taralyn, Michelle, and Billy Wroe Live. And just a little heads up, we're going to be changing the date on Taralyn, Michelle, and Billy Wroe Live. Are we going to move it to Fridays?
We're going to be moving to Fridays. The first one will be next week on the 28th, y'all. Same time. But we're going to be bumping to Fridays. Friday.
It's Friday night. Okay. I had to say that.
That's what I'm saying. And he sings. Is there anything that Ro can't do? Listen, I need to get on video you breaking them down on the dance floor with your hands in your pocket. That's
No,
what I'm
that's never. I don't even go on the dance floors no more because of that. That's why I don't go on the dance floors. But
I'm
that's
telling you.
all we have for you guys this evening. Thank you so much for tuning in with us live. We appreciate you in the live chat. If you're watching this via the replay, definitely drop us a comment in the chat, or in the, not in the chat, I guess in the comments. Drop us a comment. We'll happily reach out to you for the first 7 days. After that, we're on to the next content. So until the next time, thank you for tuning in. If you like this video, share it. If you share it, like it. Happy to engage with you live, or come up on stage if you want to join us on this particular show. But until the next time, one love, peace, and God bless.
Peace.
Oh, I almost didn't do the outro.
See, there you go.